Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Farmer. This is the Uncommon Conversations podcast, episode 28, part 4. Because when we have an interesting conversation, we just can't stop having that interesting conversation. I hate when I am trying to be all cool and then I mess up my words. But, anywho, Alex Conn is my guest today, and he's about to come on.
Yeah.
And we're live. All right, cool.
Yeah. So that was just my really shitty ass phone that kept just going out. And my thing is legal prostitution. I think would solve a lot of issues, and I think there's a lot of people that would benefit from legal prostitution. In fact, legal prostitution.
To be fair, I think it should be legal for separate reasons. It's not just for this, but I think there would be overlap.
And for instance, legal prostitution in general, it's actually legal in Australia,
and Nevada.
In fact, Tucker Carlson is actually friends with a legal brothel owner.
That's cool.
Which is, what's funny is that so with legal prostitution, the only problem with legal prostitution in Nevada
the better headline is Tucker Carlson, best friends with a pimp.
Yeah. So Kyle Kulinski, who we've mentioned so many fucking times, Kyle Kulinski, this is the only problem, and I bet this problem is better in Australia, but he was in Nevada, he was in Las Vegas, and he went to, he said it's so fucking regulated that you don't even have a menu of the women that you can have sex with, and Kyle said he was told that after he didn't accept to do prostitution, and then he was told by somebody else who had also
hired their services,
and he said you're lucky if you got somebody with teeth.
You know what's interesting? I was just last night driving through, so I live in Stockton, California. Yeah. I was driving through downtown going to get some Hawaiian food. And we were going down the street, and there was this one girl in a really, really out on the town type of dress, really done up, and her boobs were pushed up or whatever. And she was a pretty girl or whatever. And she was just standing in the middle of this shitty ass street with a bunch of cars around her. And we were just going through, and I didn't realize at first what was happening. And I was like, what the hell was this random lady doing here? And we went down further, and then there was this one chick and this other chick and this other chick and whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, they're out, running business. I was like, all right. And it was so interesting because, to your point, that's not always the case. It just depends on what you're willing to pay. But what I was going to say is the daytime hookers are the ones where you're lucky if you get there, if they have teeth, where they're methed out and 55 years old or worse and wrinkly and falling apart and whatever. But the ladies last night and many other prostitutes are actually not that at all. They're actually funny enough. You think if you're a young, beautiful, vibrant, healthy looking woman that you wouldn't go do that as a career. You'd find a bunch of boyfriends or whatever. I don't know. You'd figure some other way. But but here's the thing: some people don't care about relationships in any sort of they don't ever want to get monogamously locked down, and they don't mind. Many dudes can understand the idea of getting paid to have sex and hooking up with a chick, and women love sex too. It's not it's a one-way deal. So I understand why women would choose that route, but at the same time, personally, I don't necessarily get why. Yeah. Amongst all the decisions you would make that decision. Yeah. But
Noam Chomsky, I think, has said that if we just a lot of people of his generation weirdly have said people who are a little older have said are just against prostitution in general. And I think both of us are libertarian leaning.
On that note, I just wanted to say why we're libertarian leaning, and we talked about a few different things here. Do you take freedom seriously or not? Because to me, right? No, I don't mean you specifically. I meant this is the question you got to ask yourself with right-wingers when they talk about things like drugs or prostitution or a bunch of things we talked about, or with the left wing with gun control and with even this vaccine stuff. Like, you got to ask yourself, why do you believe in freedom, and do you take it seriously? Like, many right-wingers would come around on these issues if it was like, do you take freedom seriously? Then okay. If you take, I believe in freedom as long as it's not hurting anyone else, well, prostitution, drug use, many things that are, or even like polygamous relationships, many things that
Tucker
are not
Carlson
directly
just
hurting
advocated
anyone, they
for that.
all fit that bill.
Tucker Carlson just advocated for polygamy. Yeah, he just advocated for polygamy. Actually, it's weird. But
Well,
also
here's the
like
thing: every guy can understand why another guy would advocate for polygamy.
yeah.
We all
But his
understand the implicit incentive.
His argument was is that's like better than like just single parent households, where it's like if you're just being responsible and you're like, my thing is like, you have to be like, I think in terms of like, if you look at a right-wing speech, you look at fucking Ted Cruz or something. Ted Cruz has "fighter for liberty" on his, that's in his Twitter bio. And I'm like, you didn't support marriage equality. You didn't support, I think he supported a state's right to legalize weed, but he doesn't support legalizing weed.
Have you ever listened to a Muslim talk about the gay marriage issue?
Yeah.
I've never listened to
I've not
a
heard
Muslim
marriage, but I've
talk
heard,
about that.
I heard this one, it was on actually Secular Talk Show, and he said this one guy was talking about how like this Muslim guy was talking about how SpongeBob is making the kids gay. And it was this guy, he was like in a bunch of Arabic marriages, like SpongeBob and Sandy, and he was just making all these points, and he was like, yeah, so I've seen a few Muslim videos where they condemn gay people, but yeah, I think liberty, you have to admit, like, and I don't want to really get into the vaccine debate. I don't think the whole like debate about like whether the vaccine works is a very interesting debate, because I think that's a debate that should be done between scientists rather than individuals. But
and we can look at the data and just observe the data. I think the question of how effective is it at preventing the disease is not what people are debating necessarily. Some people are like, I don't trust any of it. I don't trust any of the system. They're all crooks. They're all whatever. And honestly, I kind of like emotionally, I understand those people. But
did you get
the argument for me is the other side of it, right? Because it's always like risk of this action versus this action or whatever. It's about what are the risks of getting the vaccine, and are people making informed decisions about those risks? Because so much of those risks are unknowns, and I feel like it's a weird, like, immoral version of compassion to say, you don't know how much of a risk you're taking, but if you don't take this risk, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, but like, did you get the vaccine?
Yeah, I got one shot. I got sick right before it, and so I had a double immune reaction, basically, like 45 minutes before I got the shot. No, Pfizer. I got the first Pfizer shot, and about 45 minutes before I got it, I started feeling sick anyways. And so once I got that vaccine, normally I get healthy in about 18 to 24 hours. But because I made that mistake and doubled down, it kicked my ass for like 5 days. And for a bunch of reasons, and that didn't help, and that was my own doing, but for a bunch of reasons, I was scared to death of getting this vaccine. Because who is it coming from, right? It's coming from corporations to solve a problem that might have been released by China to make a bunch of money and potentially like institute totalitarianism in the name of compassion. Like, I was terrified, but all of my reason, all of my faculties, all of the logic in the world told me that I was just being scared irrationally. So, and because my girlfriend works with old people, I recognize that like I could be I thought I would be doing a significant service to them by getting vaccinated, but I don't think I actually did in a huge way. But that's a different topic. And so I haven't gotten the second one. And with everything the way it's going, I'm sort of taking the bitch way out and saying that because of the mandates and because of everything getting shoved the way it is, I kind of want to not get it as a rebellious statement. Yeah. But that's not a logical one. But again, like the issue is like I've had weird issues. So there's heart arrhythmia issues or heart effect issues with getting the vaccine that has been talked about and is being studied and everything. And I've felt like my heart has been weaker and felt weird ever since I got the shot. And they did the shot really shitty. You're supposed to get the shot in the middle of the deltoid. They shot me in my fat back here where my back and my tricep and my shoulder meet. And the scientist I listened to didn't explain what happens when that happens, but he said the spike protein gets all through your bloodstream. And so whatever the reaction is, it's less centralized. But again, I don't know what any of that would amount to, but for that reason too, I'm a little bit concerned about getting it again, just because I feel like there have been things that have been off and shifted. But
I personally got the Johnson & Johnson, which was the one shot, and
the more traditional technology.
Yeah, I got the Johnson & Johnson, and I was fucked up for like a few days. I'm very pro-vaccine, very pro-vaccine. My like argument to you is there are so many diseases that have been wiped out because of the collective getting the vaccine. And I'm somebody who, even as a progressive, I'm very, outside of like paying your taxes, I'm very anti like I was like Pete Buttigieg, for instance, was in favor of like mandatory national service, and I think that's bullshit. That's a Pete Buttigieg petition that no one fucking talks about. But yeah, I'm very against like the collective. But
on that one, I'm actually kind of have a mixed position. But continue.
Oh, I want to hear your position on mandatory national service.
So, ironically, the vaccine situation with the military has been one more notch against this kind of a thing, against mandating it. I do think we have a stronger, better military when everyone is doing it voluntarily. But I think that the benefits, like what would be the cost of implementing this? A bunch of people that would rather not have to do it would have to do it. But if you said it was retroactive or only starting with people that are born on whatever date or whatever, like then that would change the dynamic for a lot of people. And you've earned your spot. And I want to make like ultimately like moral arguments about why it's the morally right thing to do. But I don't necessarily see it that way. I really do just see it in like practical terms. The discipline that would be gained in our society, the patriotic sort of unity that would be gained in our society, I think would be two tremendous advantages. Everyone understanding the military and understanding how it works and where we're at in the world, and more importantly, understanding the costs of war. Like if you know everyone's going to have to be in the military, what wars you're willing to tolerate will be very different.
No, and I understand that, but I'm just saying that like my position is like, for instance, like, and it's not even, his position isn't necessarily the draft. It's like you could be in like the Peace Corps or something like that. But like my position against it is like for one, I'm very like, as somebody who's a libertarian in some ways, I'm very much into the idea of like, oh, like when you're 21, like when you're 20, 21, like you want to like start your shit, and it's like, oh shit, I have to work for the government for a year. It's like, I think in terms of like, I think on paper at least, on paper. And the other thing I feel is, and this is I think the best argument against it is, why the fuck aren't the old people doing it? Like the old people are the one, like people like John Delaney are the ones that are like proposing this, and it's like, why don't the kids have? Why can't the kids do a little bit of national service? But they're funded by these fucking billionaires who are like donating to these politicians, and these politicians like John Delaney is one of the biggest proponents of a mandatory national service program. John Delaney never served a day in the military or in the Peace Corps. And his proposition doesn't have old people serve. Like it's only for kids. It's only for kids. Those are the only people that are going to serve.
Yeah.
Are the kids.
And like the argument, so I'll skip back and forth because I agree with you. The argument against it is, well, if you're too old, you're not really fit for military service. But the counter to that is, forget it. Just say, are you like have both metrics, meaning everyone is subject to it. It's the old people too. But if you're not, if you don't measure up to physical fitness or whatever for the military, then we can say no. And many men up until the age of, and women up until the age of 40, 45, 50 would be physically fit enough to still be able to do it. So it's not like it's just 23 years old and down. It's all the way up to 50 years old where you could be a soldier and be effective.
Yeah.
So
and I think it, like, I've heard the age would be like 18 to 21, maybe 22. That was the ages some people were talking about. Susan Rice, who's in the I've actually had many anxieties about mandatory national service, but my position is, I just feel like, as somebody who is like, I think it's really easy. I think as somebody who is like, even you, who's somebody who's 27, like the age, like the whole idea of like patriotism and unity, like I believe that, but like it's one of those ideas that I think works very well on principle, and in terms of like although you go to like Vietnam, for instance, and the generals were practically begging for a voluntary military service because the people who were being drafted were just fucking lazy. So you're going to get like a much more lazy Peace Corps and a much more lazy military because all these people just don't want to fucking serve. They're just there. They're just doing their year. And also, why should a person, my belief, and I think this is where all of my policy comes from, which is I believe in government like I'm a customer and they're the seller, where I'm paying taxes and I get services back. So I'm paying you and you give me my social programs that you're going to fund. I don't work for you. That's my position. Mm-hmm. And I get why you would draft somebody if we, God forbid, had like a new Hitler or something like that. But like,
well, here's the thing. Even then, they can fabricate a new Hitler. If you, when you say, and this is, I want to get into what I've been thinking about, like, as you've been talking, and why not to. It's interesting. Marjorie Taylor, the Republican that's sort of known as like the Marjorie Greene Taylor, that's known as like the crazy lady, the wingbat, whatever. I went and actually listened to her a little bit, and one of the issues she brought up when she was issuing articles of impeachment, or announcing that she had issued articles of impeachment against Biden, was the requirements for women to be subjected to the draft, the idea that women can be drafted. And I brought that up to my girlfriend, and she talked about like her own fears of getting forced into the military because of all the rape and all the shit that happens in the military. And it's like, between that and the vaccines, it like shows you should not be able to be forced into a position where you're losing your personal choice and control over yourself. When you do get into the military, with the military courts, the whole honor, dishonorable bullshit and all that, you are like when you're in there, you have voluntarily given up a bunch of your rights and you're operating as a soldier, not as a human being in the same context, or not as a citizen or civilian in the same context. And I think the danger of the danger of the government being able to be in charge of everyone at some point in their lives that intimately is probably too dangerous to allow.
Yeah. Like, for another thing that's and the other thing is, like, I think I'm in favor of, like, for instance, I think the selective service, like, the fact that we still have it is just kind of bullshit because we haven't used it. And I think it's just a waste of government resources.
Selective service? What do you mean by that?
So basically, the whole, like, the idea of the women registering for the draft, that comes from the fact that there's a selective service, which is if you want to get government funds, like government aid, usually student aid, you register for the selective service. And that's what they're referring to about women registering for the draft. Did you register to the selective service?
Yeah, I think I did when I filled out some FAFSA stuff back in the day.
Yeah, I haven't, because I'm probably going to go to jail now. But I didn't have a student aid. So, but the selective service is a bunch of horseshit. It's a waste of government resources.
Yeah. The idea that you have to go actively sign up for it is kind of crazy. Like, either the draft is legal or it's not, and everyone's going to be subject to it or it's not.
And the fact that it's a government program that costs money to fund, and we're not even fucking at a point where we're even thinking about a draft. Like, the fact that
honestly, like, it's so unnecessary. Every time someone's born and they get a social security number and all that, they could, like, the Social Security Administration could just send the info over to the draft department or whatever and say, in 18 years, you can draft this motherfucker. And then that'll be it. Like, it is absolutely all it's so much of government unnecessary BS.
Yeah, it's unnecessary, and it's the fact that we fund it is just bullshit. It's like how about we use that for fucking healthcare or something? It's one of those things where it's just a thing where it's like, if you just view government in this way, where I very much despise the quote, and some progressives, I think, have despised this quote. I hate the quote of John F. Kennedy, which has said, think not what your country can do for you, think what you can do for the country. And Kennedy was a great president in many ways. In fact, I believe completely in the conspiracy theories, because I think there's some stuff that's just undeniable about the Kennedy conspiracy theories. But
agreed.
But I think that quote is just kind of bullshit, because you're the one paying taxes. It's like if you go to a store and you're buying something and you're like, think not what your store can do for you, think what you can do for your store.
Yeah. I think, I would. So here's basically sort of how because I believe in balancing the individualist and the collectivist. In the concept of a citizen, you sort of have a united framework. If you believe in treating all citizens equally, then you have a framework where if the government treats one individual this way and treats all individuals this way, well, it's sort of the ultimate collective because it's everyone all together. Anyways, that was sort of beside the point. To Kennedy's comments, I think the better way to phrase it is not to say, ask what your country can do for you, and it's not ask what you can do for your country. It's sort of saying, is the country serving citizens? And then are citizens serving society? And that's sort of the framework that I would move forward
also,
from, because it is, we
water?
do have, so here's the thing, like, if you're acting, so this is sort of how Jordan Peterson and how I sort of define the ideal way to live as an individual, is to say, starting off with you in and of yourself in your lifetime, are you acting the best way to bring about your ideal self? And then, are you acting in such a way that brings about the ideal in those around you and your family? And then also, are you acting in a way that brings about the ideal in society? And if you can find a place where those all meet, then you've struck gold and you're doing well.
Yeah, I agree in those ways, but but like I said, I do think that I think you should like do stuff. I think,
but we're not here to serve the government, and we're not here to serve. We're not even here to serve our fellow man as a slave. We are here to serve our fellow man as an equal.
Yeah, and that's why I think something like a mandatory national service is just bullshit, because I think it goes against what I think the purpose of what good government is, and what the nature of citizenry and government should be. Because that's when somebody serves the military, that should be I've never served the military, but like war in Iraq. Like, I think that will, reading about the war in Iraq, that shows you the fact that there's a stupid war. And the other thing is, I think that I just believe in the fact that I believe in the value of individual liberty, where if you want to serve the military, that should just be an honorable position. It shouldn't be a place where just all people go in and that's just the thing. Because again, I don't think that you should be. I think that when you're 20 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old, 23 years old, you're mapping out what you think your life should be. And it's like, oh, fuck, I have to like serve a year in the government. It's like, isn't that like a bunch of horseshit in some ways?
I totally see where you're sorry. Oh, damn it. That was an intense yawn. I totally see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I'm only yawning just because I'm getting a little intellectually tired, I think, but I still have plenty of juice. It's starting to hit.
Yeah.
So we talked about who you can't stand and who pisses you off and annoys you.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of your worldview and sort of where you're centered. Now I'd like to redirect our conversation to what on the left and who on the left and in the Democrat Party do you think is doing good work? We already touched on Glenn Greenwald, but who are the people making things happen? What are the accomplishments? What can people on the right look to the left at and see value in?
Yeah. By the way, just so you know, if we just like if this like happens again and like I have to do this, let's just start a new live. But I want to still do it. But there are people like historical figures. Again, I think we've talked about Kyle Kalinske. I think is somebody who is an honorable man, and I think he's somebody who should be looked at by the right in a very good way. I think somebody like start a new live.
Yeah. Or if you want,
let's start a new live.
Drop off and I'll invite you back.
Okay, cool.
Hello.